afternoon, everybody. It is my great pleasure to bring to you, for not many times on the show, I have not one but two people with me today. Very special people. Yes, they're a couple. I'm just going to say that right off the top so you don't have to pretend that you're not. I have Brendan and Pema, and I'm going to have them both introduce themselves now, and then we're going to have a really fun conversation around relationships and business. We're going to hear some dating stories, I think. We're going to put Brendan in the hot seat a little bit because now we've pressed record and we can do that. So Brendan, Pema, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having us, Jason. It's great to be here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so cool. So let's get right into it because we got a lot to talk about. So first of all, these are fellow Brooklynites. So East Coasters, Brooklyn, awesome. Let's start by having you two share with us what you want people to know about you right off the top.
You can go ahead.
All right. Pema gave me permission to go first.
Permission to go. Well, this is how it's going to go. What you want us to know is you need permission from Pema. It's perfect.
There we go. That's how we keep the relationship strong.
Yeah.
So first of all, Jason, thanks for having us. And my name is Brendan Barca. I grew up in Massachusetts in the suburbs there. Currently live in Brooklyn, as Jason mentioned. I started my career in sales, worked in a bit in financial services, then in technology, and then I got laid off back in 2018, which for me was a huge blessing in disguise. It allowed me to finally go out on my own, originally as a coach, which then snowballed into doing professional speaking, training, consulting. And now, as you'll learn in a bit, Pema and I work together, both doing speaking and training for a lot of clients around the country and around the world. So we're also married. We'll talk more about that, but that's a super high level, and we live in Prospect Heights, Brooklyn.
Prospect Heights, Brooklyn. Thanks, Brendan. Pema, what did he get right and what did he get wrong? That's the more important question to start with here.
I think he got pretty much everything right about himself. Thanks again, Jason, for having us.
Yeah,
My name is Pema, and I come from Nepal, a little bit further away than suburbs in Boston. Actually, born and raised there. I came to America for college, and my academic career, which was pretty much most of my time in America, was spent studying mindfulness from psychological and philosophical perspective. And that's been something that I have personally been very passionate about because it has been a practice that was rooted in me from where I come from, but also really seeing the impact of mindfulness just to live well, to succeed, and live in a more deliberate way. So it sort of became my academic curiosity. And in the past few years, I sort of left the more research and academic world to bring my knowledge and make some use of it. So for the past few years, I've been working with different corporations on topics around performance, leadership, well-being, and also implicit bias. And I get to work on all of it with Brendan, being my husband. We've been married for a year. So it's been super fun all around.
Yeah, thanks. We are going to talk about your business that you run together. I happen to know quite a bit about it. But before we do that, we're going to get to know the two of you a little bit and hear a little bit of the origin story. I hear a kid from Massachusetts, I don't know if you were a kid when you met. And I hear, well, I can make the connection to where you may have met since you went to school in Massachusetts. But I'm so curious, Pema, this is for you to start. When did you know that you wanted to come to the United States for your higher education? Like, was that a thing you'd always strived for?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So it's very far away. And there are, at least when I was growing up, there were not that many opportunities for somebody who sort of pursues academia and then grows their career in that way. So coming to America was something that was always the only option in some ways. And my parents, I was the first one to ever go to college. I am the fourth of 5 kids. So I was one of the youngest, but the first one to ever go to college. My parents never went to school. So the only trajectory that was available to me was coming to America. So that was something I always knew. Every exam I did, every time I studied was with the goal of coming to America. So it was a big deal when I got the visa to come to America.
Imagine. Yeah, and you came in when you were undergraduate at 18 or whenever you were ready to come. You came to America.
Yes, I was 18, just finished high school and came to America and found myself. The university I went to was in upstate New York in the middle of nowhere, very different than where I come from. And when I was in Nepal, I thought I knew English, but turns out when I came to America, I didn't know much English. And one of the biggest challenge I had, apart from being away from family and cultural difference, was trying to understand what these professors were saying because they were speaking so fast. So it was an interesting learning curve for me there.
Yeah, not to stereotype too much, but that's interesting to come to the East Coast, which is generally the fastest part of the country for speaking, and have to
in Kansas or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Pema. Brendan, how about you? So you grew up in Massachusetts, and you kind of like good American kid, I assume, doing your thing. Go Patriots, maybe, or Red Sox. And then I'm curious, when did you two meet?
Yeah, so for me, like as you mentioned, I grew up in Massachusetts. I also went to school in upstate New York, but not where Pema went. She went to Hartwick. I went to Syracuse University. Yeah, more happening at Syracuse. Not on the academic side, more on the social side.
Social and sports side, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I went there, and then I was in Boston itself for 5 years, where I worked in sales and in financial services. And actually, we didn't meet in Massachusetts, although our time did overlap there. We had never met, and we didn't know each other until 17. I moved to Brooklyn, which had been one of my goals for the last 2 years back then. And Pema moved from a different part of the city to a neighborhood in Brooklyn. And then we, 7 days later, walked into the same bar and met at the bar. And that's where we met, and we've been dating ever since.
You met? Wait, you've done more than date. Let's be very clear.
Yeah, well, now, of course, we're engaged and married and also expecting our first kid, actually.
Oh, you're okay. Congratulations. Interesting. So you two actually met in a bar.
Yes.
Man, do you know how many?
It's actually very interesting because, maybe people meet at bars, but I don't go to bars. I barely drank. And certainly being a big, good Nepali girl, never talk to strangers.
That's one of their top trainings in Nepal.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my first time actually talking to a stranger at a bar. So it just...
And one for one.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Brendan, nice work.
One for me. 1 for 1 for her. I was
one for one for her. 1 for 1 for her. Man, I was not expecting that. Expecting just like knowing what you two do and kind of circles, like the different things you do. I was not expecting that you would walk into a bar in Brooklyn and meet each other. That is very romantic and very rom-com-y. I love it.
It was, I think, just a serendipitous encounter. I went to the bar alone just to like check out the neighborhood, and Pema walked in with her sister and her friend who she was showing the town. So, and then she sat down next to me, and I remember she was trying all the different drinks, and there was beer and cider and wine, and she didn't like any of it that they had to offer. And I thought, this woman's pretty interesting. I should talk to her.
Her pickiness attracted you. I like that. That's funny.
Yeah.
So then you two met, you obviously went out. Have you been together pretty much ever since then?
Yes.
Yeah. And on that first night, we had a lot of the things that like we have in common came out in that conversation. So the fact that she would go to school in Massachusetts and I was from there, and that we both had an interest in meditation and mindfulness, those things were like easy talking points and led us to even just want to be friends at the beginning. And then it grew from there.
Yeah, so let's talk now about the business that you two run together. Here we are in 2023. I'm really interested in how you make that all work. I've shared this on the show a few times that my wife and I will never be able to do that. And we're both pretty clear about that. We're too similar. If you want to learn more about my wife, she's interviewed me and I've interviewed her on this show. You can look up those episodes. But curious, when you started dating and you realized like, oh, like there's something here, right? Like this could be my person. And do you remember the moment or when you started talking about like, well, what would our work life look like together? Or like, would you be interested in going into business together? Was it deliberate or was it more of an organic, like, oh, wait, we're in business together?
I think it was very much organic. And in fact, when we met, we were doing something completely different. Brendan was doing a job. I was mostly in research world. So no overlap in terms of, we were not even running our own business. And then Brendan was the one who first went into his business. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we started, just timeline. We met October 2017 and we started dating from there. And then we moved in together actually 1 year later, 11 months later. So we were, I guess, I don't know, in retrospect, maybe moving fast, but it felt very real at the time.
Yeah.
Or right. And then that same time when we moved in, I got laid off from my job the exact same weekend. So it was almost like a whole new beginning for me personally, because I moved in with my girlfriend and also I got laid off from this job that was stressing me out, as Pema can attest to. So it was like my chance, because I had been thinking for years about trying to start my own business, but didn't have the courage or really to have the push to do it. So I started just from that day creating my own business as a career coach at the beginning. Of course, it's changed a lot since then, but there was no intention to work with Pema. She had her space, I had what I was doing, and she was just super, super supportive. And it wasn't until about a year and a half later that it made sense organically, based on my success, to have her come in and share her expertise on mindfulness and all the things that she mentioned earlier. So, yeah.
And I think it's also worth mentioning the part where in the beginning, even when I started my business, it was still two different entities. And later it sort of organically sort of grew together. And it's been about a year or a little over a year that now we have a brand of two people together and we are working in that way. But we've always been working together. And the way I started my business was I was in the research world. I had been doing well in terms of my academics and where it was all leading, but I did not have clarity as to how I would make myself productive member of the society and also find fulfillment in what I was doing, but actually seeing the result. Because a lot of times, if you're just within scholarship and academia, one of the things you can start feeling is you're theorizing and thinking about things a lot, but where is the real impact happening? And of course, also when you are an adult, you should also start working and actually make real money. So there was a lot of lack of clarity for me. And that's when Brendan stepped in, when he saw that I was very confused, in a lot of distress. And without me actually thinking, oh, I want to start a business and this might make sense, it was him who came to me and said, guess what? No, not guess what, but you
guess
have
what?
Guess what?
Guess what?
Guess what? You're in business. No, that's
So he helped me structure my content. I had the expertise, but he helped me shape it into something that was marketable. And he was the one who sold me in the beginning. It was him bringing me the business and me delivering it. And then the confidence I got from doing well and these clients were wanting to work with me again and doing a bigger program is what allowed me to start a business. And then we've been working sort of separately, but together for a while. But then in the past over a year, we've really combined it in a sense that it's an organization where you do this part. Of course, we have our delivering and content creation that we do on our own, but it's a brand together now.
Thanks, Pema. Thank you, Brendan. What I want to talk about next, what I'm curious about is, well, let's like lay out for the audience what it is that you all speak on and do, some of the offerings you have so that people understand both of your expertise. And then we're going to get into the really meaty stuff, which is how the heck do you work together and make this work in what can be a very stressful type of space, which is a month to month. And so, yeah, either you, whoever wants to, just share like a little bit about some of the things that you deliver to your clients. And Brendan, you said you work with global clients all over the world. Pema, you said there's a lot of expertise there. What are some of the things that you work on clients with?
Yeah, sure. So, well, as Pema mentioned at the beginning, we had sort of separate platforms and now it's been merging. So, for me, background in the last 5 years of growing my own business, working with clients all over the world, and also designing my own business around my lifestyle has given me a lot of expertise around how to teach other people, like small business owners, salespeople, how to do the same. So some of the main topics I speak on currently are things related to entrepreneurship, things related to emotional intelligence, and also this thing that I call lifestyle design, which I got from Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week, which is basically what I mentioned, taking your work life and making sure it fits into your overall life. So those are like the three main areas that I teach on, mostly from personal experience, but also from many of the coaching consulting clients I've helped to implement those. And then I'll let Pema share, her topics.
Well, actually, I have a question before we go to Pema. By the way, I think that's hilarious that it's like very ironic and funny that you teach that and you're married to your business partner. Because like some people, their life by design would be like, no. And some people would be like, yes, please. And
yeah.
I'm sure yeah. So Brendan,
I was going to say for us is like, people do think that, right? How could you work with the person that you live with, that you're going to have a baby with and all that? But for us, that was never even a question. Like it almost seemed like it'd be better if we could work together than if we had to go do two separate careers. So yeah, maybe it's a different picture than what other people have at home, but that's what it's always felt like for us, right?
No, we're going to dig into that in a minute. Brendan, before we go to you, Pema, I just had another question for you, Brendan, about kind of like when you speak on that, what's the big problem that people have that would need that sort of expertise? Like what's in your experience of coaching, consulting, speaking, doing workshops, what's the big problem that people have where they don't believe they can design their life?
The biggest problem is that people aren't prioritizing what's essential, and they're working on all these things that are more noise. Like we're always trying to teach these people how to separate the signal from the noise, which means what matters in your life, what are your core values, what do you want to spend your time doing, versus what's all this other stuff that you're spending your time on, even though it's things that really, when it comes down to it, don't support your overall life goals. So like, for example, one of the things we try to teach people to do is at the beginning of each year, outline like what are your 3 big goals as it relates to business, as it relates to family, and as it relates to personal goals. Because most people never do that, right? Just year after year, you kind of follow the same patterns. You have all these bad habits from the past. You never change course. Next thing you know, you're 60 and it's just in the past and you've done your career, right? So it's instead like, let's spend time now, think strategically, what does that perfect life look like? How do you then put the things into the puzzle in the right order to make your life magical? And so that's what we've been doing personally for years, and it's had great effects for us. And that's what I help other people see and then do.
It's amazing. Yeah, that is a much needed message. Pema, how about you?
So my topic really revolves around, again, mindfulness, but from the perspective of neuroscience, but also the philosophical, the deep, logical, almost qualitative understanding of reality. So looking at mindfulness from that perspective, and then looking at people's problems, whether it's related to performance, well-being, leadership, communication, implicit bias, it's helping people see the problem and deconstruct it in a way that they can see where the logical holes or problems are, and then introducing mindfulness as a way to correct them so that the answer is coming from them, and so that they are more available and skilled to problem solve in a deliberate way, as opposed to how our environment would have us, or with bare aspect of our mind so distracted by all of, like Brendan said, noise. So that's primarily what I get to do in my job.
So Pema, the topic of mindfulness is everywhere. I would assert that most people don't know what it actually means. Or they relate to it as, oh, I meditate or I do something. So since we have you here and you've done the scientific study of mindfulness as well, I'd love to glean some expertise from you around what does it mean to you and what might be misunderstood about it, about the topic of mindfulness?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is such a great time to be in right now, given all the robust research and understanding and scholarship that has been dedicated to mindfulness, but also a negative consequence of that is it is such a popular topic that there's a lot of misunderstanding. So one of the major area of misunderstanding, I think, with mindfulness is people think it's sort of like stress relief only, right? Like you just breathe, mindful, or something like that. And of course, there's an element of stress relief, but it is a small byproduct of living your life in a more deliberate way. So the way I understand mindfulness is a moment to moment awareness of things as it is, whether it's your mind, the way it's thinking, whether it's your environment, the way it is, or the action that you are taking in that particular moment. For the most part, we are not aware of what our minds are thinking or the things we are doing. And then it's after the fact, we think, oh, why did I act that way? Or I spent the whole day doing something that made me feel so terrible and I didn't get things done, or whatever it is, right? We are allowing the external world to drive us. And even just as dangerously, we're allowing our impulses to drive us, that impulse to constantly try to comfort ourselves, entertain ourselves, numb ourselves. So mindfulness is a way of sort of taking reign of our minds and living in a more deliberate way. And it has amazing byproducts with performance, being present, living life more fully, and well-being and stress relief and all of it. But the key point is living life in a more deliberate way and seeing reality for what it is.
Yeah. One thing that I learned about mindfulness, and curious in both of your opinions on this, is the idea of not assigning value to anything. Like something happens in your life or in a loved one's life, and not actually saying that's good or that's bad, that's positive, that's negative. It just is in the moment. And because I think scientifically, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're really good at assigning value to everything because that's kind of how humans have survived. That's dangerous, that's not. But we don't necessarily need to do that as much anymore. And then with the assigning of values comes, for most people, emotions associated with those values. So I'm curious if I'm way off with that, or if that's something, because I've had a couple other people on the show that we've talked a little bit about this, and that was my understanding of it, but I'm curious to hear from you about it.
Yeah, and do you want to go?
No, you can.
Okay. That's definitely part of it, and it's accurate. We can't help but think in a dualistic manner. Yes, no, me, them, good, bad. That's the most simplistic way of thinking. And at the core of all of it lies our inherent desire to be, to survive, to exist, right? So then anything that threatens our identity or our well-being, we sort of don't like it. And things that we think fills us, we like it. But the caveat is we're not very good at knowing what is actually good for us. So let's say, for example, in our world today, fame, money, power. I mean, not to say that as a mindfulness trainer, I don't go for it. I'm very much in the thick of it, working on it. I love it just as much as the next person.
Sure.
But we think it's the best thing. We work towards it. It feels right? From many perspectives, it's like you're fulfilling your life's duty, whatever it is. But they're actually, from an inherent perspective, they're actually not that beneficial. They trap you. They make you more attached. They confuse you. They sort of busy you away from what really matters, which is your freedom and your ability to live life, in alignment with reality. So that's the sort of the friction in our existence is we're not very good at assigning value to what is actually beneficial to us. So, oftentimes stripping away from all of the extra things actually is beneficial, but who wants to do that? So
also American culture, I mean, we're bombarded with all of those things you just mentioned and more every single day. Things that if you take a step back and look, don't matter at all. Like don't actually matter to survival or even really matter to our happiness in the long term, but like advertising and marketing and all those things every single day.
Yeah. And there's certain things that we are, desiring, but also those desires, like we have to look at like what they're based on, right? So we're maybe, like Pema said, we're desiring money or we're desiring some recognition or fame or whatever it is. But then like, are those desires even something we should be striving for? And like one example we were talking about this morning, like one of our favorite musical artists, Mac Miller, he's a rapper or he's a late rapper. And he, at the beginning of his career, he was 18 years old and he was rapping about how he wanted to climb to the top, get rich, get famous, be the best rapper. And like he had all these like really light lyrics about how great life was going to be when he got there. And then of course he got there like within a year or two. And then, fast forward 2018, he's rapping about very different things, basically saying that now he's there, life isn't what he thought it would be, and it's depressing. And then, he accidentally overdosed, which is, really tragic because he was a great artist and we still listen to him all the time. But that just is an extreme example of showing that we think these certain things are going to give us, are going to be positive, but are they really? So like Pema said, like, we don't know what's the best for us. And if we expect certain things for ourselves in our life and we rely on those expectations to feel good about ourselves, then we're going to be setting ourselves in the wrong direction.
Thank you both. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about being in business together. And running a business like this, it's a speaking business, coaching business, you're creating content. Sounds like separately, but maybe sometimes together, maybe future plans to do other things together. Knowing that you both know all of these principles, and as they say, knowing is half the battle. Know all these principles, try to live it. It is going to be with almost 100% certainty that you're not going to agree on everything when you're running a business together. I'm curious to start there, like more the tactical, and then we'll kind of raise it up to some general practices that you both have. This is as people and as business owners. When you two run up against something that is immovable in each other, because you're two humans, you're going to do this, especially as you're married. How do you sort that out? Especially when you're talking about not just your love life, your home life, but you're talking about your income and your business. What kind of frameworks or methodologies, or does Brendan go sleep out in the street? Like whatever the thing is, like how do you two address that as people who both understand at a high level and frankly a low level? And you have mindfulness and being present to like what might not being said. What are some things that you have done?
Yeah, I have some ideas. Do you have some?
Yeah, I have you too.
Okay. Well, I think one of the things just from like the business side is, I think one of the things we've both been really good at over time is detecting what the other person's better at than ourselves. So we both have strengths and different weaknesses, right? Like Pema mentioned, like my strength might be on like the sales front or the, how to create a business strategy. And so, when she could see that, she will rely on me to come up with the best solutions for those areas. Whereas Pema's strengths, or some of them, she has many, but some of them, things related to finance and taxes and where we're going to spend the money, and also in mindfulness content. So like all those areas, like she's the one that is like kind of in charge. And so one of the things we did when we, officially formed an LLC together was that we actually assigned like different roles or hats to ourselves, so, Brendan's CEO and CRO, like in charge of strategy and sales. And then Pema's the CFO and CHRO, even though we don't have much HR, but she does our 401k. Yeah. Okay. She wants a different title, but anyways, we literally did that. And so for the
that's good.
It's helped us to be like, if I want to go buy a marketing software, I have to go ask Pema, can we do this? So it's kind of like a real company in that sense. But anyways, what do you want to share?
Yeah, I think I would even go kind of before we started assigning these roles. I think from the very beginning, at least for me, one of the huge thing was the absolute generosity and support that I got from Brendan, where he wanted to see me excel. It was not a competition. He had my best interest in mind, not from the perspective of, hey, we're bringing the revenue together for both of us. At that point, we were not even engaged at that point, but it was about seeing me fly and then watching me enjoy doing well, growing, learning. So then a level of trust and respect that I had towards him was he has my ultimate back. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it probably will never happen, but even if we were to sort of separate at some point, I know that as an individual, he would want to see me thrive and grow. So he would have my best interest in mind at all times. So it's very easy for me to sort of let go of my rein and let him run the show in some aspects. And he does the same. We are bosses in different ways. We're both very assertive. We're
actually similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So our power dynamic is interesting because I'm a very dominating character and so is he. But then we are bosses in different areas. Even in our personal life, I run the show in some ways and he runs the show in other ways. And of course, like you're asking, what do we do when we come across those obstacles? We grapple with it for a while. Of course, there could be time where we haven't been able to resolve it. But at the end, the person who is speaking sense and is proposing something productive wins. So it could be even in a personal matter. If at the end of the day, maybe he's telling me or telling us to do something on a weekend where we have to spend X number of hours doing some productive work, and
sounds like me.
Yes, I'm absolutely resisting it. But if the scenario is such that that time needs to be put in, he eventually wins. But other times, if he's just trying to be productive and giving into his impulses, and I say, no, there's no need to do that. We can do it in the future. This weekend, we don't do anything. And at that point, I win. So that's how we deal with those times when we butt heads against each other. The
word win is really interesting. You kept using the word win. Win, like he wins, I win. That's interesting. And I really appreciate what I heard in all of that all starts with a very high level of trust. That Brendan's got his stuff covered, Pema's got her stuff covered. And then when and the other thing here, and I think this is a good thing for anybody who's in business, whether you're married or just business partners, is I've talked to other people who run businesses together that are married, they don't always have clear lines of delineation. So either two people are doing the same thing, which is very likely to result in butting heads, or nobody's doing it. And it sounds like you've actually structured it like you almost have an org chart where you're each after the org chart. So you actually know what you're supposed to be doing. So that I think is a great lesson for anybody who's in business partnership, whether it involves like being married or just doing a business partnership.
Yeah, that was a great exercise. And also just to piggyback on one of Pema's points from earlier about the, wanting to me supporting her in her beginning. When I started, I had zero income, zero clients, all this stuff. And Pema, gave me the go ahead, even though we'd only been dating for 1 year, to like chase this dream or chase this idea. And so, full credit to her, because I know a lot of other people who don't have the support of their partner, or their partner doesn't believe it will work. And then they don't accomplish the goal because they didn't have that. So, she believed in me, and then it made it easy, or then it was easy for me to believe in her once we kind of saw some of the light. But it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't both of us in that studio apartment together at the beginning.
Yeah, studio apartment, that's a good compressor for relationship issues. Like, let's get these things out in a studio apartment in New York City. That's perfect.
Yeah, studio apartment during COVID too. So
oh boy. Yeah.
That's when we probably grew the most as a couple and as a business, actually.
Yeah. That's cool. Let's wrap up for now, just for today, with a couple things. One, love to hear what you all envision is what's next. You've already announced publicly what's next is you're adding a little one to the family. So congratulations. Yeah. What else? What do you see? Like, what's the vision for the business as you two, as mindful people, move forward? And then love to wrap if you would give us some of the practices that you both like to use, or one or the other like to use, to keep yourself grounded and present in what can be perceived as a very service-based business. Is generally, it's a lot of moving parts, a lot of organization. Brendan, you mentioned you do the sales. There's a lot of no's in that. Anytime you're doing sales, and keeping it moving forward. So first things first, what do you all see as what's next in this business?
I think one of the things that we are definitely most excited about in terms of the business front is sort of coming to our own more and more as a brand together. So, in the beginning, we were doing a lot of things, and we love all of the things that we've been able to accomplish, all the contents we've been able to create, all the service we've been able to provide. But as we gain more expertise and more confidence, we are starting to be more and more honest with what really inspires us and how we really want to impact out there, and doing it together, because we found that doing it together is so much more impactful and beneficial, and also, quite frankly, fun and fulfilling for us. So that's the next thing for us.
I
Nice.
just like, as we talk about this, I see so many couples like shaking their head, like, like, oh my God, they're so, they're full of this, or they're just like, so, yeah, cringeworthy. I just
Like, who are these two people, and is this AI Jason's talking to, or what is this? No,
it's like, are they real? But the crazy thing is, it is real. So, but
that's
I can
super
also
cool.
hear the other voice. So yeah, just to piggyback off what Pema said, that's definitely something we're working on is, we started as two separate businesses with different platforms. And now, we're bringing that together. We're actually creating a new website, and we created a newsletter recently around our joint brand. The new newsletter is called the Mindful Minute, and we give people a quote, a reflection, and an action all within the mindfulness space and space of Buddhist philosophy. So really helping people that don't have much knowledge around mindfulness to understand and unpack it with one useful lesson each week. So that's like a idea of like where our direction's heading, is forming our joint brand in the mindfulness wellness space. And of course, we come from different angles. Pema comes from her background in Nepal, in academia, studying these mindfulness principles. And for me, it was almost like mindfulness through application. Like you mentioned in sales, I've been in sales since the beginning of my career, and I guess I am in a lot of ways. And, you're constantly hitting these roadblocks, and you get rejection. And I still use mindfulness and meditation as a way to, see things a little bit more clearly, as a way to be a little bit more resilient and to take things a little bit more lightly. And so those are all angles that I'll be able to teach from as I support Pema in our continuance into helping employees and small business owners, and more broadly, people in the space of improving their life and their minds.
I want to give you both a shout out on that newsletter. It's really good, especially for somebody like me, where it's like I understand the value of all of it, but I kind of need you to tell me what to do with it. Which I think a lot of the development space, there's a lot of great concepts, but then it's like, but I don't have Pema's background, or I haven't spent time studying this, so I hear this Buddhist teaching, and then I get something from it, but then what do I actually do? And so I really just want to acknowledge you both, like, great format, because it's useful for me to be like, oh, so yes, I don't want to have to do the work to think about like, how could I actually implement this today or utilize it, which is really useful, especially when I think for a lot of your audience that is like that. And you live in a place like New York is, yes, people are mindful, but also people are not mindful in New York, and just all that. So with that, let's wrap up and let's talk about some practices that you two would recommend for anybody listening that they go, hey, you know what? I've wanted to, like, the things that Pem and Brendan are talking about. I want more of that. I'm just not really sure where to start. Besides, and by the way, this is a straight up plug, besides subscribing to the newsletter, perfect. That's a great place to start. But where else do you recommend that people would start?
I think there are various aspects to it. I think, Brendan, you could speak to starting a business where it does not exist, creating something where it does not exist. Maybe you can start with that. And I have a few thoughts around like working as a couple or working as a team.
Oh, well, I wasn't going to go that angle, but let's see. Okay, so for me, I think some practices that I constantly implement, not just from starting a business, but even for someone that has a regular job, or that, maybe they're a freelancer, whatever it is. For me, morning routine. This is a simple thing, but my morning routine is critical, or both of ours.
Simple concept, not so simple to execute for most people.
Yeah, so now we pretty much do everything together, but it wasn't always that way. So, when I first started to learn more about self-help, professional development, mindfulness back when I was like 25, I slowly started to implement new techniques to bolster my own morning routine so I could have time to think more clearly and think about my own life and where I wanted to take it. And so just a couple of things that I do now in order would be things after we eat breakfast. Basically, we will both do a 5-minute meditation together. Mm-hmm. And then that's basically for us, and Pema can talk more about that specifically, is sitting silently for 5 minutes with no stimulation. So that's the meditation we do. And then after that, we both go our separate ways and do journaling exercises. And for me, I do 2 separate journaling exercises. One that is more like a quick, let's say 3-minute bullet points of 3 different topics. One that is things I'm grateful for. Another one is any recent victories in my life. And the third one's any affirmations of what I want to bring into my life next. So I just do like a brain dump of those things. It takes up like a, quarter of a page in my journal. And then that part's done. And then the other journal I do, which I think is also really important, is just a one-page reflection, and it could be about anything. So I actually got this from The Artist's Way by Julia. I'm forgetting her name, the author, but the book is called The Artist's Way, and she does a 3-page daily journal where it could just start anywhere and weave around. And I find that is almost like my own personal therapy of working through whatever problems I'm doing. Let's say I got a rejection at work, and I just kind of go through it. And then by the end of the page, I'm like, this doesn't matter, So those are like the things that I do each morning before I start. And I don't even go into email. Neither of us do, 9 o'clock at the earliest. I mean, today, not even till lunch. I mean, our business is different than some people's, but we're trying to stay out of it so we can think deeper, work on bigger things. And that's been the biggest difference for me in my whole life once I started to have that morning routine, so I can create space and think of bigger ideas that can impact our lives.
Thanks, Brendan. There's so much gold in there. Pema, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I do everything Brendan does. I don't do the one-page brain dump.
Maybe next year.
I've done it from time to time. I'm somebody who needs to keep switching things up. I think meditation and gratitude is something that has stayed consistent, but other than that, things switch up. I think one of the big thing, if we're trying to accomplish anything in life, we think about the hard work and how, the direct route to it. But oftentimes what we don't realize is our creativity, that muscle to believe in ourselves and the possibility really comes from a level of mental well-being. So really taking care of your happiness, your health, that perspective is so important. And of course, there are ups and downs in everybody's life. And whether you're working as a couple, whether you're working as a team, or you're not even working together with your couple, but you have someone, it's so beneficial to support each other, because there are times when I'm down and Brendan's somehow okay and he's down. Somehow we are seesaws. It always works out because the other person can support you. So that level of well-being and feeling okay is a game changer when it comes to being able to face that rejection or being able to put in that hard work when you don't feel like it. So really taking care of your spirit in a way is, I think, very important. And it's different for everyone. Yes, do meditation. Yeah. Everybody should be doing meditation. By now, we know enough to say that everybody has to chip in at least 2 to 5 minutes a day. But other than that, everybody's different. There must be something that fires someone up and something else for someone else. So whatever it is, don't be cheap to give that to yourself and think, oh, I need to be productive right now. No, you need to take care of you first, and then everything else aligns. So keeping that top of mind is important, I think.
Excellent. Thank you both so much for being on today. You have the official invite to come back on, and you can bring the little one and talk about anything else you want to talk about. I was laughing, and I'm sure I know you've already thought about this from like 2 to 5 minutes of uninterrupted time when you have a baby. If you figure out how to do that, please, I will have you back on, and you will be, if you can write the book on that. But that's what screwed up my meditation practice for when we had our second child. Is like, but yeah, want to say on a personal level, congratulations on everything you've built so far. Thanks for being a great role model. Thanks for bringing a wonderful little human into the world here soon. It's going to be that you get to raise to be mindful and make an impact just like the two of you, and can't wait to have you back on again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Jason. It's been a blast, and we're looking forward to it. We'll report back on the how meditation goes after our baby's born sometime in December.
Yeah, you both just show up. You'll be like, no.
In a year, we'll have a little bit more understanding of how we did.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good, however it goes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brendan. Thank you, Pema.
Thank you, Jason. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.